Hello, Scoob believers, and welcome to episode number 70, the number 70 of the Undiscovered Entrepreneur, and it's me, DJ Scoob, coming at you, whatever device you happen to be listening on. Okay, so we're going to go right into the Scoob Believer of the Week, and believe it or not, the Scoob Believer of the Week is Bree Campiano. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. Sorry, Bree. Bree is actually a really good friend of mine. We just recently connected again after probably a good 6 months or so. We kind of lost touch with each other. We were back together again. And she introduced me and brought me into a new group, which I'm really excited about, called The Great Discovery. If you'd like to know a little bit more about that, go to tuepodcast.net/discovery, where you can get possibly even some free courses about pretty much just about anything. Check it out if you'd like to see that. Okay, so today we are talking to number 3 of 3 of our experienced entrepreneurs. So today we're talking to Clarissa. So just to give you a really heads up right away, a little background about Clarissa. She does have a medical condition which kind of makes it kind of tough for her to talk, which was really very interesting to me because she is a podcaster, which I thought at first was kind of like, well, how do you have a speech problem but still a podcaster? But she pulls it off really nicely, and she's really authentic about herself and what she does. So I'm really excited to introduce to you Clarissa. Salutations, Scoob believers, and we are here again with another amazing entrepreneur. Today we're interviewing an experienced entrepreneur. Let's say hi to Clarissa. Hi, Clarissa.
Hello. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for being in the Undiscovered Entrepreneur. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day today.
You bet.
All right. So before I get started with anything else, I have one kind of semi-serious question to ask you. You ready?
Go for it.
All right. Are you a Scoob believer?
Yes, 100%.
All right.
100%.
Awesome. So thank you so much for being Scoob believer. I really appreciate you. All right, Clarissa. So you're one of our experienced entrepreneurs. What I'd like you to do here is just kind of give our audience, give our Scoob believers a little bit about who you are and what your entrepreneurial adventure is and what it was like to get started.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'll do my best to keep it short, but I have known for quite some time that I wanted to work for myself. And I had an almost 30-year corporate career. And in that 30 years, I pivoted, trying to get closer and closer to what I'm doing today. And like many during the pandemic, it was a time to really reset. And it was really my time to ask myself, okay, Clarissa, you have been talking about wanting to work for yourself for I don't know how long. It's time. So I hired a coach, and she with working with her, she really helped me set that plan to exit.
Awesome. So what are you doing now as far as your business?
Great question. So I'm a multi-passionate creative entrepreneur. So I do a couple different things. One thing is I sell art. It's not my main gig, but I just love creating and sharing my work, and I'm not tied to it. If you like it, buy it. And that would make me happy too. I'm also a transformational coach, and that's mainly what I do. And I work with a couple of different groups. I work with people who want to leave the 9 to 5, like I did a couple years ago, and help them create their plan to exit, as well as get their business started. So it's really helping them make that transition, which can be super duper challenging. And I'm also a podcaster. So, and Jesse, you were on my podcast, and it's called Painting Your Path. And that really came from after me publishing a book by the same name, Painting Your Path. And that was really a turning point for me. Again, as I was grappling about shifting from the 9 to 5 to working for myself, I started
Awesome. So you do a lot of different things, actually. That's just not, that's
I
why you call yourself
do.
a multi-passionate and
Yeah.
entrepreneur. Yeah.
Yes.
That's
I
awesome.
can't just do one thing.
I wish I could do that. If I do more than one thing, my brain explodes. That's just how it is for me. Not everybody can have
Yeah.
that. That just being able to do a bunch of stuff. Well, my wife's like that too. She has to do two or three things at once, otherwise she gets bored really quickly. So it's like,
Yes. Yeah. I like to do different things. So that's just how my brain's
can you do me a favor? What I'd really like to do here is give me a little bit more about your book, Painting Your Passion. First of all, I
wired.
love the
Yes.
title of the book that because it kind of mixes a couple of things that you're really into one thing because you're into art, like you say, and you're into passion and loving your passion. So, can you give me a little more idea what the book's about?
Yes, absolutely. So when I was back in corporate thinking about making that transition, I wanted to interview different women who had already done it. And I thought, okay, maybe there's something I can learn from them. And that's kind of where it all started. And I interviewed 21 amazing women who basically what they all said was you just get to a certain point where it's like it's time to jump. It's like how long can we sit here thinking about how miserable we are and not take any action? And with each interview, I created an art piece for each of the ladies that I interviewed as my thank you. And I wasn't going to include my story. It was strictly going to be all about them. But like so many of them asked me, are you going to share your story too? And I think I was afraid because I thought, oh, people from work are going to read this book because I'm not going to not talk about it. And as silly as that sounds, that delayed in my publishing. But I finally decided, you know what? My story is worth sharing too. And maybe I'll be able to inspire somebody. And in that book, I really sat and thought about, okay, how have I accomplished all my goals up until now? And in that book, Painting Your Path, is when I came up with my framework, which is what I use with my clients to help them transition out.
Fantastic. That sounds amazing. What's funny is you touch a little bit on something I talk about a lot in my podcast is different types of fears that we have to overcome as entrepreneurs, especially new entrepreneurs. And one of the biggest fears that, and it's amazing to me, is the fear of what others think of you. It kind of turns into a type of imposter syndrome almost. Like, what are these
Right.
people going to think? Are they going to like it? Are they not going to like it? Are they going to make fun of me? Things and a lot of times if we're not ready for that type of fear, it can stifle us into out of our creativeness and
Absolutely.
stop us what we're doing in our tracks.
Absolutely. And I think that has always followed me throughout most of my life. I like to call myself a recovering people pleaser
Mm.
and perfectionist and good girl. So it's been something that I've constantly had to pay attention to, and thankfully I've made. And what I've realized, Jesse, and maybe you've talked about this too on your podcast, but like I think so many of us feel like this, but the reality is everybody's so worried about themselves or not paying so much attention to you and like really over analyzing you. So I think once I really got that, like, okay, a lot more people are feeling this way. I just gotta let it be, let it go, and just realize not everybody is gonna like everything that I do, and that's okay because the reality is I don't like everybody's stuff either, right?
Exactly, exactly. One thing I like to say is your vibe attracts your tribe. So
Yes,
when you have something that you do, whoever likes it is going to come to you, and if they don't like it, they're not going to come to you. So don't worry about
yes,
what those other people are thinking that don't come to you. You don't know what they're thinking, what their situation and what's going on in their head. So don't worry about them so much.
that's right. Yeah, yes, great advice. Mm-mm.
So is there anywhere that we can? Where can we get this book? Where can we get Painting Your Passion at?
It is available on Amazon, so you can get it there.
Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and put a link in the show notes too. So if anybody wants to go into the show notes and just grab that book real quick and listen to, or I listen to my books. I'm sorry, I don't know if it's audible or not.
Yes.
Okay,
Oh,
good.
not yet,
Not
not
yet.
yet.
Okay, hopefully soon. But if you want to get our hands on this book, go down to the show notes and take a look and see if you get it for yourself. I was wondering if you know who Amy Porterfield is.
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Yep.
good. Because I hear it because I listen to her all the time too. It's
Yeah.
like Pat Flynn is my one guy, and
Right.
Amy Porterfield is the other one that I listen to. But
She's so
it sounds
great.
you two have very similar aspects on where you've come and where you're going, and getting out of the 9 to 5 into something that you really love and that's in your zone of genius. So I just wanted to see if you knew who she was.
Yeah. Yeah. I think she's fantastic. I love her stuff. I've done some of her. I haven't taken her paid course, but I've done some of her free courses.
Yeah, yeah. I've actually done a couple myself too. They're really inspiring, and being able to
Yes.
get you across the start line is what I like to call it.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me how we have to think about that pivot when we were first starting out. We're in the corporate world doing the 9 to 5, doing the rat race, and having to pivot into something that's not entirely stable if you really think about it. It's not that paycheck, that week to week paycheck that you normally get to, into something that's like completely up to you to be able to make this kind of money.
Yeah. It can be very scary. And what I have to do, what I tell my clients is you got to plan for that, because the overnight successes that we see are they're true, but they're not, at least they're not the majority. They're not the majority. And I think, you know, doing something on your own is stressful enough as it is. So I like to say, make a plan and set aside some funds to help minimize that that stress level of of the inconsistency, because I don't know anybody who automatically hit it out of the park like on day one or year one or year two, even. It takes time. It takes a little bit of time.
It does. And you know what's funny is a lot of times what we see in the overnight success is not always the overnight success. We
That's
see the
right.
very end of it. I mean, that's what people show on social medias and everything else too. The end product's what you actually get to see. What you don't see are the hours and hours and days and months spent working up to that point. They're not
That's
going to show
right.
you unless they're really transparent. Like there are some people that are very transparent. I try to be that too.
Me
But
too.
unless they are very transparent about what they're actually trying to accomplish, you don't get to see all that. You just get to see the final product. There's a book called Atomic Habits that goes into something very similar to that in the
Yes.
ice cube. I'm sure it looks like you kind of know that already, where you can sit an ice cube, and if it's like 25, 26 degrees, the ice cube does not melt. 27, 28, 29 degrees, the ice cube still doesn't melt, but it's still there. And it's not until you get to 32, 33, 40 degrees where that ice cube finally melts and you visually see that ice cube finally melting is when you actually visually see what's going on. And that's what we're talking about in something like
Right.
this.
That's right. That's right. And I think, like, my voice sounds raspy, and this ties into my story because you so badly, at least, okay, I'll talk about myself. I so badly wanted to be so like successful right out of the gate, because I saw it happen for some people. Maybe they didn't go from 0 to 6 figures in a month, but it kind of happened quickly. And it, the truth is, at the beginning, you don't know what you don't know. You just have to start. And I pushed it too hard, Jesse. I pushed it too hard. And by the end of 2022, I got burned out, and I had to spend most of 2023 like getting back in the zone. And I just want to share that with your audience, because I know that they're getting to that starting point. And I just want to say, give yourself space, grace, self-compassion as you're going through this journey.
100%. We talk about that a lot too. And it's nice to hear somebody else say it too, and not just me to my audience, but somebody else said the exact same thing. We all work really hard on what we're doing, but let's not get it to the point where we burn ourselves out and we can't get anywhere further. For example, I know that one person I interviewed on my podcast, Cliff Ravenscraft, I don't know if you know who that is or not.
No.
He, a very big guy. When he was starting his podcast, he was full bore for years, and he actually ended up being hospitalized for gallstones
Oh,
that were
wow.
very, very large, and he didn't know that was going on until he had to be hospitalized. It's because I think he was right in the middle of like a 24-hour podcasting stint or something like that, something he was trying to do. And as
Wow.
soon as he finished it, he ended up going right to the ER and then into the hospital because he had gallstones.
My goodness.
So, and that just goes, that's what we're trying to avoid. And it was great to hear him because I know you just said you don't know his, but he's a coach that basically charges $12,000 a session.
Wow.
And so that's how big he is. And people get into it because he's so knowledgeable about what he does. But it's good to, it's not good to see him hurt. Let's put it that way. But at
No,
least we're
but
all,
it's real.
yeah, but it's real. We're all human. We all go through a
Yeah.
lot of the same experiences. Another thing I want to touch on, and that you kind of mentioned this too, is we don't want to compare ourselves to other people.
No,
We want to compare ourselves to ourselves.
that's right. And how we did yesterday, that saying, comparison is the thief of joy. And I so believe that because on this journey, it's kind of hard not to, like, I'm just gonna be real. Like it's hard because, like, especially if you're working with a coach, let's say you're working in a group, you see other people or you see famous people. You're like comparing yourself to famous people who've been at it for like years and decades, and it just is no good for your soul. And I know it's easier said than done, but the good news is once you recognize that in yourself, you can just stop. And I gotta tell you, Jesse, like it's taken me a little bit of time, but I've started to like unfollow people who I got too obsessed with because I was so busy, like, I like how she said that, or I like how he said that. And then you kind of just lose touch with, well, wait a minute, what's my message? What's my message? It's okay to get inspiration from other people, but at some point you just have to like limit yourself on social media so that you can get back to your work.
Yeah, exactly. And there's nothing wrong with idolizing somebody or following somebody
Yeah,
that you share a message with that makes you feel good, that you know that it's okay. But there's a fine line between having like a virtual mentor or somebody that you look up to and basically copying what they're trying to do to try to get the same outcome as they have. We all have different
right.
experiences. We all go through different parts of our life. So we can't have the exact same thing that they have, and they're light years ahead of us right now. If you're only 2 or 3 and they're like 15, I mean, it's going to be obviously about 15 years before you get to where they're at. So don't think you're going to get there overnight and just by copying exactly what they're doing.
Yeah. And that just, it's probably not exactly who you are, right? We're all individual. We all have our different perspectives and different skills and the way that we see things. And like this year, I'm truly embracing that. Like it's taken me some years to like get to this point of, you know what, I'm just going to experiment. And that's what I'm declaring 2024. Honestly, I wish I would have done, if I could impart some wisdom, if there's different things you want to test out, test them out. Test them out at the beginning. You're going to hear so many people say niche down, and that's great if you're clear on a direction. But if you're multi passionate like me, it is hard. You are not wired that way, and there is like there's groups for multi passionate people, and I would say just try out different things and see what lights you up, because I think the worst thing is questioning yourself. And I think that's also what happened to me last year and the year before was I wasn't allowing myself to try out these different offers, these different ideas, because I felt like, okay, everybody is telling me, girl, you need to like pick one thing, just do one thing. And I did it for a while and it was fun. But then I was like, it just didn't feel like it was 100% resonating with
Well, there are some people like yourself that have multiple zones of genius that you want to be in, that gives you that nice warm fuzzy feeling in the center of your chest. If you can do it, do it. If you're like me and can't, just do the one thing. At least you're doing
me. That's
something.
right. Yeah. And I think my point is call, like, do what feels good to you. Do what feels good to you. And test it and see. Like a lot of my clients and people in my world are like, I don't know if this is going to work. I kind of want to do this, but I kind of want to do that. And it's like, well, test. I mean, don't do it at the same time, but like launch one thing, see how it goes. And maybe later in the year, you launch something else and you see how that goes. And then you can just go from there. You just got to start.
Oh boy, I love those last words you said. You just gotta start. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Get across the start line. That's one of the things I really like to say is just get started in something, anything.
Yes. Anything. Anything.
And then my
Right.
tagline and then my tagline for my podcast, I can, I am, I will, and I'm doing it today. We do it
I
while we're
love
thinking
that.
about it. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Okay, so now we're gonna get to the first question.
I love this. Yes.
All right. That's okay, because that was a great conversation. I love it. Okay. So what I'd like to know actually is in your first year of business, in your first actual year of business, do you have a pitfall that you encountered that kind of sticks out in your mind as far as like maybe a story or something?
Sure. A pitfall. So when I started in my first year, I was so afraid because I'm a coach and you have to, if you have an offer or anybody, product, service, you got to ask for the sale.
Hmm.
Like I, I ran an event and I had so many people who were like interested in the event that I did. And there were so many lost opportunities that I didn't know it in the moment, but looking back, like I'm also an organizational psychologist, so I love, like, anytime I do an event, I always like to ask the audience, what did you think? And I would put out a survey and just ask them all these questions. And if so many people like actually took the survey and like they told me what they needed, they told me what they wanted, and it was the first offer that I was putting out. But Jesse, I was so scared. I was like, I don't, oh my God, like, I don't know what to do. And I did get some clients from it, but in hindsight, there were so many more that I think I could have connected with, but I was just kind of like too afraid. I didn't want to be pushy. I didn't want to like feel like a sleazy car salesman. And it's funny because my coach was like, that's just not in your vibe. I don't think that's even possible. But back then I was just too scared. So that felt like a little bit of a pitfall.
Yeah, it can be. It can be. And just for the record, I'm not retired, but I am a 16-year car salesman. So I learned stuff. But
Right.
yeah, there's nothing wrong with asking for the sale, especially if you're doing something to lead up to ask for the sale, because you've given yourself the right to ask for that sale after putting in so
Yeah.
much time and work and effort to put the product together, to talk about the product, to present the product to those people. And a lot of times, if you really sit down and think about it, if you don't ask for the sale, it's actually a disservice to your customer because you're not giving them the opportunity to learn more from what you have to offer.
Yes, that is so true. That is so true.
So instead of thinking about it as I'm asking for a sale, think about it as I'm giving people an opportunity to learn more from me and basically thank me by paying me with their wallet, or however you want to say it. You want to give them that opportunity to be able to take your services.
That's right. That's right. And I really had to do exactly what you said and take it a step back and just sit and really reframe my mind to really view this as service. And that was my career, was my last career was in coaching. So I just had to really reframe it in that same way that you so eloquently put it.
Oh, gee, thanks. Okay.
Yeah.
And what's funny is surveys. Surveys are huge. Whenever you do anything, if
Yes.
you have an opportunity to find out what your customer or your guest is looking for in some kind of form, a survey in this example, they basically tell you what they want from you in that.
That's right. That's right. And I just did this with my audience, with my email community, my Facebook community. Something else that I had been really thinking about that I wanted to experiment with was doing a short term group coaching type office hours idea. And in my head, I thought, oh, that might be cool because not everybody is ready to spend thousands of dollars on one-on-one coaching. So let me see if this is something viable and if people would be interested. And I sent out a survey to my list, but even before I did that, I I said, hey, I would love to just chat with anybody who wants to talk about this idea. I think it's a good one. I think it would benefit you. And if you're not ready for one on one coaching, this might be a good fit. So there were several people that hopped on. And just in that conversation was 30 minutes. I got so much feedback on what would be helpful. So from that, I put out a survey to like the bigger audience, and I'm going to move forward with this idea.
Good. That's the way to do it. Because you know that if this is what they want, at least it's going to be viable. There's so
Yeah,
many times where you'll have a product and you just put it out there and nobody wants it. Why? Because nobody knows. First of all, nobody knows that you're doing it first.
right.
And then if you don't know that's what they want and you put it out there anyway, nobody's going to want it because you didn't know that they wanted it, if they wanted it or not.
And see, I think another pitfall that happened to me earlier on was also being shy to even talk about what I was doing
Mm.
and thinking that, oh my God, I'm gonna annoy my audience if I talk about my framework again. And the truth is, especially with social media, like your post is gone in like a couple of seconds, a couple of hours. And that's why I think having a podcast is really great because it's there. It's always there. But I was just also really shy to be visible. So that's something that I had to learn to work through.
Well, that goes right back into what we were talking about earlier, the fear of what others will think of you.
Yeah. Yes.
It's basically the same fear. I mean, having you it's a funny to how we think about we're going to annoy our audience, but if we're going to annoy our audience, they'll just turn us off if they don't want to hear us.
That's right.
It's that simple. But
Yeah.
but if they do want to listen to us, then they will listen to us. I mean, once again, the same thing. We don't know what our audience is thinking. We don't know what's in their head as far as what they want to listen to, what they not want to. Let's not assume their emotions. I would rather
That's
assume, hey,
right.
they want to listen to me and do it in the positive way.
Yes. Yes. And I I believe people need to hear a message over and over and over and over again because everybody's at their own stage in life. And for me, for my audience, and probably because it took me a long time to finally leave the 9 to 5, a lot of the people who are with me think similarly, not necessarily the same, but a lot of my clients have been with me, following me for like 1 to 2 years before we worked together. And I just think, gosh, gosh, what if I stop communicating my message and reaching out to them? Maybe we would have worked together.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. Keep the communication open. Always be able to contact one way, shape, or form to be able to talk to your audience. Back then, when you were just getting started, did you have like a mentor or a virtual mentor or somebody that you follow that kept pushing you forward? I know you said you had a coach. Did you have anybody else besides
Yes.
that kind of pushed you forward?
I actually worked with a couple of people for different aspects, and like one person, I would say the one person who was a mentor, and I did a couple of things with her, was Kathy Heller, who had the podcast "Don't Keep Your Day Job." Now she changed it to, I think, the Kathy Heller Show. But it was really like, when I started listening to her podcast, it really gave me the fuel and the energy to take even if it was the most microscopic step, which is really what happened. And I got inspired to write my book. I got inspired to continually take action and test different workshop ideas. And I often give thanks to her, because that's kind of where I was, what am I trying to say here? Like, I just found her, and I really resonated with her message back
Awesome. It sounds like almost the same thing I went through with Pat Flynn when I first discovered him.
then. Yes.
When I first
Yes.
when I was first discovered Pat, I think I just had the idea of podcasting. So I went on YouTube, looked up podcasting, and he was one of the first ones to pop up. I basically learned how to podcast through Pat Flynn's free stuff. And because of that, I went back and started listening to his podcast. And I started from episode 0. And he's up to episode, I think he's in the 850s now.
Wow. Amazing.
So I've listened to him and believe it or not, this is going to be weird to say, especially on my podcast, but he and I actually follow each other on X, on Twitter. So
Nice.
I do get to talk to him every once in a great while. I'll send him a DM, which is kind of cool.
That
But
is super cool.
one of the it's nice to have somebody that will lead you in a direction, even if it's not somebody you can actually reach out to and touch.
Yeah,
But being able to learn from them through a podcast, through YouTube or anything like that, it's really inspiring because you will start seeing progress.
it is so true. It is so true. And yeah, and that was, Kathy was that person for me. And since then, worked with different coaches, and I probably realistically will always have one for myself to just help hold me accountable.
Yeah, accountability, very, very important. That's kind of what I do with my coaching too, as I try to hold my clients accountable for what they're going to do. I always follow up with
Yes.
them, ask them how you doing, did you get the thing done, that kind of thing.
Right.
So
Right.
in your we're going to look kind of overall right now, but is there a failure that you're actually proud of? A lot of times you'll have a failure that happened, but you're glad that failure happened because it taught you this lesson or something along that.
Yes, I would say, um, I like one of my summits. Just, I was like, it just was a terrible launch. Let me just say that. It just, at least to me, it felt like I was like, oh my gosh, nobody's here. Nobody's interested in this. And what that quote unquote failed launch forced me to do was just take a step back and really reflect on, okay, what happened? How did I show up? I really showed up in a half kind of way. But it was also eye-opening to me, because I was really starting to not totally feel in love with the direction that I was going in. And you also hear this message a lot. Okay, you you just gotta keep trying, keep doing, keep going. And to an extent, I agree. But you also have to ask yourself, like internally, is this really what I want to be doing? Or maybe is it time to pivot? So what that quote unquote failed launch taught me was, okay, it's time to re-examine this business that I'm doing. And I think it might be time to shift things and go in a different direction.
That's so funny because that's almost exactly how I got into podcasting.
Oh yeah.
I tell this story a lot, so I'm sorry, everybody. Okay, so
I want to hear it.
you want to hear it? Okay, she wants to hear it, so we're going to tell her the story. Okay, so when I first started wanting to be an entrepreneur, I wanted to be a karaoke DJ and a music DJ. So
Nice.
I started planning and things like that, but I had no money. I have no equipment. I have absolutely zilch going on. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start a GoFundMe page and people are just going to give me money. Obviously, that didn't work. I think I made a couple $100 in a couple months, and I'm sure that was my mom throwing in a couple dollars just to make me feel good. So instead of throwing my hands up in the air and said, this was a complete failure, I'm not going to do anything. That's it. Instead of doing that, I was like, okay, like you said, take a step back. Why didn't this work? What do I
Yeah.
need to make it work when I try again? So I listened, like I said, I listened to my books. I heard in a book that starting a podcast is a great way to gather an audience to help you in what you're trying to accomplish. So I was like, okay, great, I can do that. So I started doing the podcast thing, but I love doing the podcast thing so much that I put the karaoke thing aside. I still want to do it eventually, but I put the karaoke thing aside and just started concentrating on the podcasting. And now I've done it for like 2.5 years, and it's been just a thrill for me.
Yeah, that's so fantastic. So fantastic. Love it. Love it. Love it.
But I'll let you know when I become a DJ. That's actually
Yes, please do.
that's how I got my screen name, DJ Scoob, because I do the perfect Scooby Doo voice and laugh, and I wanted to be DJ. But I carried that on to my podcast because I liked it so much. So why not?
Yes, you're entitled to that.
That's right.
You are.
All right. We're going to look at the other side of that. And in your vast number of accomplishments that you've had from then to now, what accomplishment are you actually most proud of having accomplished?
I would say it's with my coaching and working with amazing, amazing people. And what really lights me up is we'll start the conversation on, let's say, day one of what they want to do. And just fast forward to like the end of our contract to even beyond. I'm just amazed at all the things that my clients have done. And to me, that's really what I'm most proud of, because I like to say, honestly, if I can do it, I know you can do it too. And let me help you put something together, put a plan together, and help you get there. So I would say that's what I'm really proud of, are my clients just showing up, starting to see their vision, taking action, and then seeing the fruits of their labor.
And knowing that you were actually a part of it.
Yeah, it does make me feel like, yay, like this is, when I think about my whole life, there are two through lines. One is being an artist, and very early on, like in my life, I just loved supporting people and helping them achieve their goals, and I get to do that for a living. So I feel like it's a win-win-win.
It really is. It really is. I feel the same way too. When I have
Nice.
when I have a client that comes to me with a problem situation or something that I know that I could help them with, and they go out and actually do the thing, and they're like, "Oh, this is so awesome! Thank you." It definitely makes me feel that warm fuzzy feeling we were
Yeah.
talking about earlier in our chest. So, yeah, it's amazing.
Yes. Like I think about, I just as I was sharing that with you, one of my clients came to mind, and his name is Alex, and I'm sure he won't mind me talking about him. But he's in his 50s, and he just said, I really want to be an example for my God, no, my granddaughters and my grandnieces. And I've always wanted to publish a children's book. Like, that's
Mm.
what I want to do. And like, fast forward, he is like on book number 3. And I got to meet him a couple years ago in Florida. That's where my best friend lives. He's in Florida too. And it was just like meeting with a friend. And it was just so nice to get to actually connect.
Yeah, when you actually finally get a chance to reach out and shake their hand in life, it's just a whole different experience.
Yes, for sure, for sure.
All right. If you were to come across a new entrepreneur yourself, and they're saying, hey, I want to start an entrepreneurship or something along those, before they jumped into that entrepreneurship, what advice would you give them, you think?
I would say start with yourself and take the time to really dream big. I think as children, we have such a vivid imagination. And when we get to being an adult, it's like, I want to do, like, we get a little robotic, not everybody, but it's like, I want to do the right thing. I don't want to make a mistake, and I don't want to fail. And I know you and I look at failing in a different way, but I think for so many people, they're just so afraid. So let's start with something else. Instead of thinking about how is this going to happen, because I think so many times we just get so obsessed with how. Start with why. Start with what is it that you are interested in, and give yourself the space, the time to make a vision board, journal about it yourself. Like, some questions that I like to throw out there are, what is it that you're passionate about? What pisses you off? What brings you joy? What would you do for free if you didn't have to worry about money? Like, what would you be doing? And just start there before you do anything else, and really get tuned into your gifts, your talents, your skills, and what you bring to the world. And if you don't know, because sometimes we're so in our jar, we can't see the label, right? Ask 3 really good friends, what do you think I'm good at? Like, how would you describe me? And see what they say. Because I think sometimes we don't see our own greatness.
Agreed, 100%. Yeah, you said something there I always say too. You can't see the label from inside the bottle. That's what I say too. I say
Yes.
that a lot. And
Yes.
I mean, when you're inside the bottle, you can't read the ingredients. You can't read the ounces. You don't know what's going on out there. So it's up to you to ask somebody from the outside in, hey, what do you think this is? What does this actually say about me? What does it, like, how many ounces am I? Whatever
Yeah.
it is that
Yeah.
happens to be. So but you have to be able to be comfortable to ask that question. Yes, that's a very uncomfortable question for a lot of people. They don't want to bother anybody. They don't want to think that they're being like egotistical or something like that. Hey, what do you think of me? You
Yeah.
know, and make sure it's people that you can trust when you
That's
ask those
right.
questions. Friends that you can
Yes.
trust. And
Yes.
you touched something. It's amazing to me how fear and failure actually go together in a lot of different ways.
Yes.
And we fear failure. Well, what do we fear about the failure? And that just opens up a whole can of worms for a whole nother podcast we'll talk about later.
Right.
But but it's always interesting to me on how those two go together.
Yeah. And I know that you and I look at the word fail as a first attempt in learning. And
Right.
I don't think we can say that enough, because if we can just remember that, look, you are going to kind of not be so fantastic the first time you do anything, sure, there might be one person in this world who hits the ground running, but you're doing something different. You're doing something new. So like just breathe into it.
Perfect. Love it. Love it. That's a good way. We're going to end that part right there. What I like to do with all my guests on my podcast is a 6-month goal for yourself, Claire. So what do you see
Yes.
yourself and your company doing in the next 6 months?
So this is my year of experimentation. So I have my year kind of roughly planned out. So, but the one thing that I have been wanting to do that I'm finally doing this year is doing women's retreats.
Hmm.
So I technically have one planned for at the time of this recording, the end of March. And I'm also planning one in June in Colorado with a friend for the summer solstice and as a time to take a pause and just really kind of reflect on the first half of the year to see how it went and where you want to go for the second half. So I'm really excited about that in the next 6 months.
There you go. Do you have a possible link or something like that? I could put it in the show notes.
I do for yes, depending on when this airs. I
Right.
have the one for March and I will have one for the summer one.
Definitely give me the one for the summer one.
Okay, you got it.
For sure.
Will do.
Okay. So what I like to do with you, Clarissa, is in 6 months, I want to have another interview with you, just like this one.
Okay.
And we're going to see if you've reached those goals and what kind of accomplishments you've had and what kind of experience you've had in the last 6 months. Is that okay?
I love that. Yes, let's do it.
All right. All right, Clarissa, thank you so much for being on the Undiscovered Entrepreneur. It's been an absolute pleasure to be able to talk with you today. And we learned just so much from you. I really appreciate you.
Goodness, thank you so much, Jesse. This was fun.
Great. All right, so this is your time to shine. This is the time I want you to advertise yourself. Let us know how to get a hold of you and all that good information. Okay, ready, set, go.
Well, I would love for you, if I'm assuming you like podcasts, if you're listening to us right now. So I would love for you to tune into my podcast. It's called Painting Your Path. And my podcast is really to help you metaphorically paint your path and create life on your terms. So that's what it's all about. And if you are someone who is asking, I'm not sure what path I really want to be on, I want to do something fun and creative, reach out, DM me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and let's just have a conversation. And let's see what happens next.
Yeah, I love that. Let's see what happens next. That's the exciting part, right?
Yeah.
All right. All right. Thank you so much, Clarissa. You have a great evening. All right, Scoob believers, make sure you stay tuned for the wrap up. All right, everybody. Goodbye. All right, Scoob believers. That was Clarissa. Wow. What a great story that is. I loved how she talked about getting out of that 9 to 5. That's one of the hardest things we can actually do because we get so used to having that weekly paycheck, like I was saying a little bit earlier, and having to rely on ourselves. It's a good feeling to be able to rely on ourselves, but it's a little bit scary too because we really don't know what's going to happen. We kind of lose that safety net when we get that paycheck from week to week, and now we're really not sure if we're going to get paid at all unless we actually accomplish something. So we talk a lot about fear of failure. Gosh, it's just so much stuff. If you miss something, rewind it and play it again. That's what you got to do because a lot of great stuff. So thank you for Clarissa for being on the Undiscovered Entrepreneur. Thank you for being an experienced entrepreneur. And hopefully we'll follow up with you in about 6 months. Okay, so a little bit more about me and what's going on in my life right now. The community I talked about a little bit earlier, the great discovery that I am now a part of, had a proposition for me I couldn't pass up, and I'm going to give you guys that same opportunity too. So from now to this time of recording till April 15th, 2024, there's a section in the website that gives you an opportunity to be an affiliate for the Great Discovery website. So if you want to take part of that and start making a little bit of money on the side and seeing how to actually be an affiliate for the Great Discovery, go to tuepodcast.net/discovery. There's the information right there on how you could become a affiliate for this company for free until April 15th, 2024. So check that out. See if that's something you might want to be part of. Also, I'm working on my next actual talk. I'm going to go ahead and schedule that right now. On May 14th, 2024, I'm going to have another one. Not sure what it's about yet, but I'm going to keep you posted on that. But I do have a date set for my next talk that I want to make sure that you're aware of. So let's check that out. Also, I have done the impossible, Scoob believers. I have scheduled myself a vacation. Something I have yet to do in any job that I've ever had. So that's going to be coming up sometime at the end of April. What am I going to be doing on that vacation? I'm going to be making stuff for you, my Scoob believers. I'm going to be taking that time to probably work on a course on how to start a business. This is going to be just a little small course, but it's something that I'm planning on giving away to you for free. So keep an eye out for that. It'll be sometime after that. It'll be sometime after April that I'll be offering that to you. So please do what you need to do to keep track of what I'm doing. Subscribe, do all the like things, whatever it is. Go to linktree.com linktree linktr.ee linktree /DJs linktREE/DJ Scoob to follow me on all my socials and all the good places so you know when that comes out for you. All right, that's about it for me. Thank you for joining me in all three Experienced Entrepreneurs. The next episode you'll be listening to will be a coaching of somebody awesome. So let's wait for that. Thank you so much. Can't wait for that. All right, thank you so much, everybody, and you all have a great evening. Goodbye now.